My guest today is the MP for Clapham and Brixton Hill. She chairs the All Parliamentary Group for Endometriosis after living with the condition herself and experiencing debilitating symptoms for many years. She is on a mission to make things better for women with endometriosis. Please welcome Bell Ribeiro-Addy. Thank you so much for coming on. It's lovely to have you here. To introduce yourself, you are the chair of the APPG for endometriosis.
I am.
And MP. I would love to start with your story because it's a story that's got so many twists and turns, and for you must have been awful to go through, but really important for us to share, I think. So a lot of women will be able to relate to at least some of the moments that you went through. So for you, when did symptoms of endometriosis begin?
Well, it was a few years back now. And I remember just before I became an MP, I was actually working for Diane Abbott. She'll definitely come into the story later.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in the office late one night in Portcullis House, which is just over the bridge from St Thomas's Hospital. Mm-hmm. And I started to feel some pain in my side, right where my left ovary would be. Now, bearing in mind, I've always had painful periods my whole entire life. They were awful,
and
absolutely
when did they
awful.
start?
I think by the time I got to my third period, it was always going to be an excruciating experience. And you hear so many stories about how bad your period is. Some people just have it bad, some people don't. This is normal. People try and treat it with different things. I remember being on various different medications that just didn't quite work. It was always kind of treated as a bit of a something to just push to the side or medicate. Yeah. And I remember one of the medications making me feel sick and then them trying to give me an anti-sickness pill. And I'm like, hold on a second, how many different pills are there just to manage something that I'm naturally going to have to do every single month? And then you hear the myth that after you have a child, it's that also isn't the case. I've been pregnant before, unfortunately had a stillbirth, but I did give birth. That didn't make my periods much better. So, over the years I've had bad periods, and I worry about the fact that so many young women have been told that this is normal.
Oh, yes. It's the line, I think, that every woman I've come across, every story I hear, you can guarantee that at least one of those GP appointments, if not numerous of them, women hear, and unfortunately it does a huge, not only, but a huge amount does come from male GPs as well, where it is a conversation of, it's part of being a woman. It's natural. Buck it up. Get on with it. Other women have periods, kind of, you're not special. It's not out of the ordinary. And I think especially if women are going at such a young age as well, when we're talking about young teenagers, that's a really kind of untrue, factually incorrect message to be giving young girls when they're just learning about their bodies and we're doing sex education.
Absolutely. And I remember actually getting to university. I studied biomedical sciences. One huge part of that was actually reproductive biology. Yeah. And realising that, yes, we've been able to have some marvels in terms of reproductive biology. We can do IVF, we can do all these things. But we don't actually know a whole lot about women's bodies. We don't know a whole lot about what women go through every single month. And because we can talk the talk in terms of medicine, it's not so obvious that so little is known in comparison to men. I even found out that they're more likely to use male mice in research than they are to use female mice.
Male mice? It goes all the way down to the tiniest little animal.
It goes down to the tiniest little animal. And that's just because they're not willing to deal with hormone issues. It makes it difficult when people are testing their medicines. Obviously, pharmaceuticals, the way you need to test your medicines, you're trying to get them to market as soon as possible. Yeah. Start messing around with hormones now. Oh my gosh, it's too much. And even the pain medications that women are pushed on so much, they're not necessarily geared towards women. They're more likely to be tested on men and then titrated down for women and for children, etc. So it's so much is not geared towards women specifically. And actually, even if we look at research and development overall, like it's so much. I'm trying to remember the exact figures. I don't want to get them wrong, but they are shocking in terms of the percentage less that you get dedicated to research on medical issues that specifically face women. And I would always say, when it comes to endometriosis, if men suffered from endometriosis in the way that women do, because we know there are the very, very small instances where men might, we would have cured it by now, probably.
We wouldn't hear the end of it.
Rightly
so, because it's a horrific condition. Top 20 most painful conditions in the world. So we should be talking about it non-stop, and we shouldn't not hear about it. But yeah, if it was the other way around, it would be a completely different conversation. I don't know the statistics myself either, the specific ones, but I have heard that more R&D has gone into male pattern baldness, and also the significant number of people that suffer with diabetes and struggle with diabetes. The research and development money for that is absolutely phenomenal.
And heart disease, don't forget that.
Heart disease.
And do not forget, of course, erectile dysfunction.
Oh, yes, that classic statistic. Yeah.
That is huge. And I mean, obviously women, the majority of women, actually, I think it's like 90% of women will suffer issues with their menstrual cycle at some point. And comparatively, way less men will suffer issues with erectile dysfunction. But the amount of research that continues to be put into that, even when, they have the little blue pill, is huge. And no one's saying that you shouldn't invest in these things.
Absolutely.
It's just so obvious that women are deprioritised when it comes to health. So I'll go right back to to what happened to me. Now, I was in so much pain, I was doubled over, and so I have to take myself over to the hospital. This was on a Friday. Yeah. And if you've ever been in a hospital on a Friday, you know that if they can't figure out what's wrong with you, you're in for the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Because, that's just the way our hospitals are. They're woefully understaffed over the weekend. So I go in and I can't stand up in so much pain. They do some tests, and eventually they find that they're not sure. I'm not sure. There's like some fluid around my ovary. They're wondering if a cyst burst, but they keep me in to help me keep the pain under control. But then by Sunday, I'm sent home and referred to my GP.
Are you in? I imagine you're still in agonising pain on Sunday.
Less pain than I was, obviously, because I've been on some pain medication. Yes. But I was still in pain, and then kind of started a cycle of pain that hasn't seemed to end. Yeah. And I was in a huge amount of pain. Had to be referred to my GP. I went to my GP, who then referred me for another scan, which was. I thought, I've had one of these. I was in A&E, had a scan. And that was the first time I heard the term endometriosis.
Okay.
Referred to me as one of the things that they might be looking for.
And was this an ultrasound scan that you had?
It was an ultrasound scan. And I was told that I would be referred further. But I'm not sure what happened, because it must have been a break in the system or something, because I didn't hear back for months and months and months, and it got worse.
Oh, wow.
It got worse, the pain got worse, so I went back to my GP again and realised that for some reason the referral hadn't gone through. Mm-hmm. I had to get another ultrasound scan before they could then again. God. So I finally get to a point where I'm told they're going to investigate me and hopefully give me a laparoscopy, but the waiting list is long, so long. And by this time, I'm certain I have endometriosis. I'm starting to look it up and starting to look for more things and find out what's happening. And I was in so much pain. But I got the date for my laparoscopy.
Okay.
This would have been nearly 2 years after that first time I went into A&E.
Wow.
It's probably about a year.
2 years of chronic pain.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And I get to the laparoscopy and I'm actually feeling kind of nervous but hopeful. Mm-hmm. Nervous but hopeful because I'm finally going to have this procedure.
Yeah.
So I'm in pain on that day. I have the laparoscopy, and then obviously they put you to sleep and everything. Yeah. I wake up and I'm in more pain than I've ever been, and I'm what's happening?
Yeah.
And then the doctor comes over and says, and it was a very busy clinic that day, we've done the procedure, we haven't found anything, so we're going to refer you to the pain clinics and you're going to have to go home. So I'm in a huge amount of pain. I don't see how I'm going to be able to move. They left me for a little while. They came back. And I don't believe it was actually that particular doctor that did it. I think it was one of those days where they had a lot of junior or trainee and basically he was going around observing. He's like, one of my associates complete the procedure and obviously I checked as well.
Hold on. The potentially the trainee was giving you the information.
I wouldn't say they weren't a doctor. I'm sure they were all doctors, but it seemed like one of those. And obviously I know that has to happen. Every once in a while you do have to have people doing these things for the first time or looking at them. And obviously they were supervised. I'm not saying that wasn't the case, but it was clear that the senior doctor who had made the decision had not
come to speak to you.
No, he came to speak to me eventually to simply back up what his colleague had said.
Okay.
I said, okay. And they're like, well, you're going to have to leave soon. I couldn't stand up.
Oh, God.
And I was like, okay, well, I'll wait and see. But I can't stand. And by this time, I was in tears. And as someone who'd been in pain from periods my whole life, I don't cry at pain. I think that's really one of the problems in terms of women in pain. It's like, unless we're screaming, no one wants to believe us. But we don't all respond to pain in the same way.
No, and if you live with pain every single day, I remember when I was at that point 10 years ago now, where because I was waking up and going to sleep in pain constantly and there was no relief from it, your body has to adapt because we have to survive.
So you're not going to cry and scream the whole time because that's just not how you...
Exactly. My base level, if we do, in hospital they do the pain scale of 1 to 10, my base level, my normal became at least a 7 at all times. So when I get to a 9 or a 10, you might notice it's flinching in my face slightly, but I'm not going to be screaming because it's every single day. Okay, so you were in tears.
You were in tears, but and obviously it's because it was already in pain. And what I found even with the ultrasounds and whatnot is that any time it was touched, let's say, I would be in pain, more pain for a good couple of days. And just thinking on all the pain, I think they've now done research shows the worst periods are comparative to a heart attack, a minor heart attack. And I'm like, okay, so people need to start listening when we're saying that it's a problem. So I can't move. And whilst I can't move, I was just so drained and I'm not getting up. So they're like, well, the clinic is closing. And I was like, okay. And they're like, well, if you're refusing, so I'm not refusing to move. I actually literally... I'm in too much pain.
I'm sorry, but you've just had surgery.
Yeah.
Like, are we living on 2 different planets here? They've just gone in and physically moved and broken things and, mess with your body.
And I'm telling them I can't. But so they put me in a wheelchair and they wheeled me to the A&E of the same hospital.
Oh, my word.
That I'd just had the procedure in. And obviously the A&E were furious because they were like, the department should have taken care of you.
Yeah.
But what did they have to do? They had to put me through the entire A&E process. So I was there in the gown that I'd had the operation in, which did have some bloodstains on it, waiting for a bed. And all I ended up doing, being put on, is obviously put into the gynecological ward.
Yeah.
And, given something to get on top of my pains. The next day, another doctor comes who's very annoyed that I had even been brought back through because they had signed me off. And she proceeded to just go along with, gaslighting, basically, saying, well, the doctors in this hospital have done this. We've looked thoroughly. We haven't found anything. You're saying, well, you're here now. And I'm like, yeah, I am here. I'm in pain. And the reason why I'm still here is because I'm in pain.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, show me where it is. And I showed her and she's like, well, that could be muscular.
Oh.
And she said, well, she literally went onto we need the bed and you're not. I was tired. I was angry. And obviously, as I said, I had been on top of the pain. I'd been able to get on top of the pain partially. So I actually, having been effectively discharged by them by force, put myself into a cab and went to another hospital.
Oh, my word.
And went through the A&E there. And after a couple of days again, I got on top of the pain and then I went home. And
Belle, that's horrendous.
It is, and that, yeah. I think to myself, there were a number of women in that clinic. Like I said, it was a busy day, and I wonder how often they do that. And then again, it was that referral to the pain clinic, just pushing women's problems onto just taking more tablets.
Yes, and just that attitude. And I think it's funny actually, I was just speaking to a lady recently actually about this exact topic of your experience is horrendous. And like you say, in that laparoscopy, what they did, and they came back and said, we couldn't find anything. And I was just speaking to a lady recently about the difference between all practitioners have to adhere to the NICE guidelines, or NICE guidelines, however you say it, but not everyone is accredited by the BSGE guidelines. And actually the training for those is quite different in the ability to identify endometriosis and other things in surgery. So actually it's heartbreaking that immediately the onus was on you as the patient. It's like, oh, well, we can't find it in your body, so there's almost blame or fault there because, well, we couldn't find it, so you've wasted our time. Rather than, was the right person doing the surgery with the skills and the training to find what you had going on?
And absolutely, that's what it goes back to. Something I was saying earlier, skills and training. Again, as I said, I studied reproductive biology, didn't learn about it. We didn't learn about it. It's not, there are so many different things that happen to endometriosis, PCOS, things that may be mentioned but just brushed over. And quite literally, we're not taught to look for it, even though so many women are presenting with it. Having to go through that hospital, though, meant that I had to go through a whole other process again. Start with the ultrasound scan, where I'm told they can't see it in the ultrasound scan, but not surprised because by then I'd done enough reading to realise that you don't always see it in an ultrasound scan.
It's actually the most unlikely scan that you will see endometriosis.
Right, so why are we wasting money on it?
Exactly. And the other thing is, I also found out, is vast majority of sonographers are not trained to find endometriosis.
Using an ultrasound. Only a very, very small number are.
Exactly.
So it's a waste of time. Given that the prevalence is so high in women, when women present certain symptoms, I would think that is the go-to.
Yeah.
And by then, I think we're 3 years in by the time I get to this 3 years in by the time I get to going through this new process. So nearly two years for the first process, going to that hospital, waiting for my scan, and then again having that ultrasound scan, and then being referred on for the laparoscopy. So I'm there. And by this time, I've decided to run as an MP, and I genuinely don't think I can handle it.
Oh gosh.
And because I'm in so much pain, and I remember just after my, call it a botched laparoscopy, I was in pain for a long time, and I didn't go back to work for a month. As part of that was working from home, and then when I did go back to work, we made it work around my pain. And that's why I mentioned working for Diane Abbott at the time. It was difficult because I was the most senior person in her office at the time. For a month it was a bit difficult for people in the office. I was able to answer things by phone and whatnot. But then when I came back, sometimes, depending on the time, and, sometimes things were cyclical, I would... put it this way, I'm sure I was always working in some way or the other. If I had a bad night, I would just come in late and work later, which I would probably do anyway. But it was a lot of that was having a bad night. I had very many bad nights. So her allowing me to come in later, her allowing me to work around my pain is not something that a lot of employers are willing to do.
No.
And these are some of the things that the APPG for endometriosis are asking for. Reasonable adjustments, particularly whilst people are waiting for a laparoscopy.
And she was a great support to you then, by the sounds of it.
A huge support. Again, I heard so many awful stories that people have had with their employers, and I'm so privileged that I had not had that experience. But also, because I had now a better idea of what might be happening to me, even though it hadn't been diagnosed, I had the opportunity to do a lot more reading. And, all credit to the endo warriors. There are so many of them out there. There are so many different online forums where you can find information And then I actually started to talk to people around me and find out that there were so many other women that I already knew who were my friends, relatives, friends of friends, who were suffering with the same thing. And the thing is, if you don't speak to people about it,
Yeah.
you don't know. And I actually was able to find a treatment which was wouldn't call it a treatment, an injection. So
Okay.
so there's the general contraceptive injection that women have lasts about 12 weeks, let's say.
Yeah.
As a contraceptive, it's not really meant to. It's not really necessarily prescribed for pain.
Yeah.
But it works in the way that it changes your cycle, stops your cycle for these number of months. Let me not get too technical talking about exactly what it does. But there's one which has a higher level of one hormone than another. It turns out that the one that I think had more progesterone was more expensive. So there's one that NHS will generally offer, and there was another one that I found someone else was on.
Okay.
And she was telling me it was more effective for her and that she was having a good couple of weeks without pain in a month.
Wow.
I was like, okay. So I spoke to my GP about it, and obviously you're only meant to take it as a contraceptive, but I talked about it, the amount of pain it's in. So while I'm waiting for this laparoscopy, can I please be put on this, but this specific one? We agreed, moved forward. I got on that one. And whilst again, I'm always in some level of pain, I had 3 good weeks a month. And that
must have been like a different life for you.
I was
compared to
like-
what you had before.
Absolutely. And it made things easier for me. As I said, I'd put myself forward for election. I was thinking to myself, well, I can't even do this. But I was like, this is great. This works. And then the Brexit vote came.
Oh, okay.
It was just the Brexit vote, though, not actually the referendum vote. Not actually...
So just the conversation,
Just
the
the
discussion
conversation.
about everything.
And as I said, working in the MP's office, I realised that because we had a load of emails coming through. The next day, constituents were emailing, Diane and other MPs were getting emails, and some of them were complaining that their NHS trust had written to them and told them that they were no longer able to fund the treatment that they had agreed to go on because it would now become too expensive because they would have to buy it from the EU. I'm like, how would you know that already? It was this expectation of
Talk
the
about
pound.
jumping the gun.
Completely. And this happened in more than one instance. And I didn't even think it would affect me. My next injection wasn't due for a while. But get to my next injection 12 weeks later, and then they're like, oh, the prescription hasn't come through. And I'm like, oh, shouldn't really delay this. The prescription hasn't come through. And so by this time I'd been off it for a month, and I was like, oh, that started to feel uncomfortable. And then they're like, oh, for some reason there's an issue with the manufacturer. Anyway, I get there, I get to speak to someone, and they're like, look, it's just not coming through. You don't want to be off for too long. Maybe just take the one that people more commonly have.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so I do. So I booked myself in to go, and I'm explaining this to a nurse who's obviously not in a good mood because of the election. And she was basically like, well, you're lucky to be getting this with everything that's going on. Yeah. And yeah, I was like, okay. But then I had it once, and obviously there are side effects to everything.
Yes.
And maybe 1 week of relief. And when I say relief, it's not without any pain. It's just not as bad. And I'm like, what is the point of doing this?
Yeah.
And so then the next cycle comes, the next 12 weeks, they still don't have it. And it becomes increasingly frustrating. The pain starts to go up. But by then I get to a point where I get to have the pandemic hits.
Yeah.
I worry because the time frame for anybody having a procedure then starts to lengthen.
Yes.
Obviously because the pandemic affected everything. But eventually I get a date for my laparoscopy, and I'm again cautiously hopeful. In that interim, a friend of mine was saying, well, why don't you just go private? And I was like, firstly, no. But secondly, actually, even if I had and I wanted to pay into one of those insurance schemes,
Yes.
you wouldn't be able to, they would cover everything else, but not endometriosis on the basis that you had been investigated for endometriosis. So even though they hadn't found it,
Yes.
because it's been something that had been looked into already,
Yeah.
you'd have to pay for it separately.
Yes, I found that out a few years ago.
Yeah.
Anything that is pre-existing, they will not touch you with a barge pole.
Absolutely.
So,
And that expense is
it's huge.
it's huge. It's huge.
astronomical.
So actually, what would the so I mean, it's almost as if saying, by the way, just because there's I'm trying to remember the percentage chance, this many women experience endometriosis, probably sign yourself up for private healthcare because you never know.
Yeah,
The
healthcare of our female population is so awful, and women's health is suffering so much. There's a high chance you'll probably have something wrong with you. So why don't you just do it just in case?
Just in case, because if you present afterwards, you're not going to.
Yeah.
And that's awful. But also, our NHS is one of the best things about our country, and it should be preserved in the way that it is, in that it's available for anybody, no matter who you are, free at the point of use, and actually advocating for yourselves. What I found about this process a lot is that I had to advocate for myself.
Yeah.
But we have a National Health Service that's meant to advocate for us, no matter who we are, and that's what it should be doing.
Yeah.
But I get my laparoscopy eventually during the pandemic, and then even then, there is two people. One is, talking about, what my options are, and I was like, well, whilst we're there, because we're already there, can we put a coil in? You may want to have the coil because the coil's been proven to have, relief and etc. I was like, well, no, I've not really thought about having a coil, just come for the laparoscopy. Oh, but it's easier when we're there. And I was like, no, obviously after my not obviously, but after my endometriosis, I wanted to understand any issues I might have with fertility and blah blah. And they're like, oh, but it's easy. I was like, no, I don't want a coil. Thank you very much.
Wow. So the I'm going to use the word pressure because it sounds pressurizing. The pressure was really there because, and I actually personally do have the coil. I do have it. It is not something that I'm going to have forever. Yeah. It is something that at the moment is okay.
But you had the opportunity to think about it. You weren't lying there in a gown, coming in for another procedure, being told, how would you like to be fitted with the coil at the
literally,
same time?
just before the point where they're about to start the anaesthetic and send you to sleep. Oh, I mean, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's not, I'm not.
It doesn't matter what they offered in that. What the option was in that point is not an option. I mean, I always talk to ladies that I work with about this. It is about being empowered because you are making a decision informed and like from an empowered point where you're not being forced or pressurized to do something because the choices are limited. That's exactly what the position you were in.
And I understand what the coil is. I understand a bit more now because I went to look at it afterwards. But I'm like, but then I was like, well, no, could you please not?
Yeah.
I'm already just anxiously thinking about this one procedure. And then this same person goes on to, explains, the same legal stuff that they read, but then also says, we often don't find out what the cause of pain is. And I don't know, that where I was feeling quite hopeful kind of made me, I was like, I'm getting this spiel again. We might not be able to find what's wrong with you, and if we don't, we might refer you to the pain clinic. And I thought to myself, so I get it, you're already kind of lowering my expectations before I even get into this. And then I go in, I have the procedure, and I wake up, and obviously I'm in pain because I've just had this operation. But do you know what? I can instantly feel that something has changed.
No way! Wow.
And I've always thought that I've had maybe a sensitive. I could feel that. Yes, I was in pain, obviously, because I've just had a medical procedure. But I could tell that something was different, and I was no longer in pain from the endometriosis because, as I was told when I came a bit more to, yes, we found it. And not just where I thought it was, on both sides. And I was like, well, okay, so now, I suppose in some ways, after all of this time, sometimes people and the way they speak to you and the number of tests you have, you start to believe that maybe it is in your head. Yeah. Maybe you are imagining it. Maybe you're weak. Yes. Maybe you're just not managing the pain well enough. Do you know what I mean? That kind of...
And unfortunately, there is a lot, like you said, there's a lot of good things to say about the NHS. But from my personal experience, from my professional experience, of all the women that I talk to and continue to talk to, like your story, I do think that we have a combination of a system and some of the people in the system, and maybe one affect kind of and co-affect the other, that encourage this tone and this narrative of, are you just making it up? Are you sure? Like, is there actually anything wrong? Or are you just a bit stressed? I mean, the women that I've spoken to, are you just a bit stressed? Some have been offered relationship counselling when they've been told that they've been having painful intercourse. Not investigation, relationship counselling.
I mean, that's
it's obscene.
And it's unfair because I realise, you know, when you start to realise that the impact, perhaps psychologically, that being in that much pain has on you, and then also the way in which you start to feel that there's something wrong with you, or your body is bad, or the way in which you deal with it is bad, or you are the problem.
Yes, or you're
the problem. Yeah, the problem's not the problem. You are the problem because of how you handle it.
Yeah.
But we're only human, and we're not meant to be in that much pain.
No, and it's really interesting, I know from my own journey, that I think it's quite natural in some ways when you get that diagnosis, whether this happened for you as well maybe. For at least quite a few years after my diagnosis, I was very young as well, so I think it's when you discover who you are and it's that teenage to adulthood kind of phase where I became my condition. So before it was me, my personality, my quirks, and this kind of question mark over there, and suddenly those two things became one. My personality and who I was went, and I just thought that people saw me as a walking, talking disease or condition. And I think when you have to live, you know, like the average time to get diagnosed now is, I think, 9 years, or it was 7, or it's gone up.
I think it was, now it's roughly 8. I mean, and like I said, if it wasn't for all of those endo warriors, I managed to get mine down to 5.5, something like that.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind, it required me going back. And I know there's some other women that go back even more than I did, and it still takes that amount of time.
Yeah.
And I think what got me is when I think about it, I mean, having found it when you were young is obviously much better. But if you're in, you know, I think presented those symptoms perhaps in my late 20s, if it's taking up to 8 years to diagnose, you may be thinking about having a family and understanding that endometriosis affects this. And I know people, and you find out that there are people, you get to a certain stage and any type of pregnancy you might have would be considered geriatric pregnancy.
Oh, what
I think from when you're it's awful. I think it's over 35 or 36 or something like that.
I think it's 35.
Yeah, and I was understanding it, and actually it may have been this case way back when in the NHS when we had money. That if you were found to have endometriosis, then obviously there was work done with you for what we call fertility preservation, perhaps.
Yes.
Egg retrieval and things like that, freezing eggs. But actually now that's not the case. And on top of that, once you reach age 41, you are no longer able to access free kind of fertility help services on the NHS.
Wow.
And that's what I've been made to understand. And obviously, it's not that if you go into the hospital and you are pregnant, you're not going to be treated. But I'm talking about fertility assistance. If you have issues, if you require IVF, if you require anything like that. So there are a lot of endo warriors who are calling for either. Well, I was sure that was the case, but for either it to be made the case that if you are diagnosed, then efforts are made for your fertility preservation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's only right, and it should be part of that all-rounded, holistic offering to make sure that we are really supporting women. And actually, that's the next thing that I really want to ask you about. It obviously links to the work that the APP are doing, as well as what we need to be doing, awareness and advocacy overall, in terms of, again, my own experience and lots of women that I speak to. It is very much, sometimes once you've had that surgery, we've had the diagnosis, it's see you later, good luck, there's the label.
Well, that's it. Well, that's where I am now. So
Yeah.
I've been an MP for 5 years now. And let's say I had that procedure just over a year into becoming an MP. And, you know, I wait for my follow-up, it doesn't come. I wait for my follow-up, it doesn't come. So quite literally, I've now entered into an entirely new process that, again, started with a scan. And by which time, as I said, I could literally feel the difference after that laparoscopy. And it felt great. It almost felt like a weight had been removed from around those areas, and it wasn't straining and causing pain anymore. But that obviously came back over time.
Yeah.
And I still hadn't had this follow-up, and there's just a whole load of confusion with the pandemic, etc. So then the process started again. But then it kind of, because I knew this time was coming, I also started asking questions about fertility.
Yes.
And so I don't know what happened, the confusion because of which clinic to get referred to. It's been difficult, but I'm back to the place, not in as much pain as I was before, but the pain is going up. The pain is, and then people see you and they say, you know, you say you have endometriosis. Are you in pain? I'm like, I'm in pain all the time. I'm in pain now.
Yeah.
But there's good days and there's the bad days and then there's the really, really bad nights.
Yeah.
But it's I suppose it's awful in some ways, because I also now know that obviously any situation where you have to have a repetitive procedure is not good. Like no one should have operations for the hell of it.
No.
And I could really do with another laparoscopy, but I would be on my third one. And really, I shouldn't have had to be on a second one. No. But if they hadn't messed up the first one,
exactly.
If I absolutely had to have a second one, it wouldn't be so bad. But now I'm in a place where I can't really consider the laparoscopy because, well, I could, but it's not a good idea. And also there's a new treatment out and there's a lot of excitement about it. But we do have to realise that, again, it's not going to be available to everybody.
No, it's not.
It has been offered to me.
Okay.
But again, because of my questions about fertility, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. So it's a really difficult situation, and I think we should be more cautious welcoming it. Not because it's not good; it's great, and I pray that it offers relief to some people, some women. But it's still not changing the fundamental problem.
No, it's not.
It's taking too long to diagnose. It's taking too long to get to effective treatment. We're not spending enough money on treatment. We're not looking at preserving fertility. We're not looking at this holistically.
No.
So having a load of treatment at the end, which is going to cost the NHS a whole load of money, is great for the pharmaceutical company that's going to make a whole load of money out of it.
Oh, I'm sure they're very pleased.
But what about the women at the beginning? What about the young girls that start off having very painful periods and are not told to look into it?
Yeah.
What about the women that become start being in that amount of pain and are gaslit when they go to hospital, and then the 8 to 10 years it takes them to diagnose the condition? We need to stop that, and once we do, that's when I'll consider it a real victory.
And it's this word preventative yet again, and we are not good at this.
No,
I'm sorry, but we're not. As a country, we are not good at the word preventative in any area. There is so much opportunity when we're talking. We should be talking to women actually about, if you do want to have a family and if you do want to do that, the work of epigenetics, the work of all sorts of different areas is phenomenal. And we need to be talking to people about actually men and women, because fertility is important on both sides. If you want to do that, that's absolutely fantastic. What does your life look like right now? What's your lifestyle like? What is your overall health like? Because that has a huge impact. And then we can look at when women are really young, when we're getting into sex education and periods and puberty, and we need to be doing it from such a young age, and it's just not there.
No, and neither is the research, and neither is the development. I don't understand. We make up over 51% of the population. And wouldn't it be better if we were all at work? There's even an economic argument for making sure that women are not suffering from endometriosis, because guess what? We work better. We make you, company, more money.
Yeah. And
not just that, we're thinking about the falling birth rate in this country, and the fact that, very soon we're going to be a country of quite old people.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be better if we had better fertility? Guess what? Invest more into women's reproductive healthcare, and perhaps you'll have a healthier, bigger workforce. I mean, I don't know. And the thing is, obviously, I make that argument perhaps for people that don't see the moral argument behind it, which is, why are we leaving 51%, up to 51% of the population to suffer in this way? I think it's something like 9 in 10 women will have some issues, some sort of menstrual issue in their lifetime. 9 in 10, out of the 51% of women, but we don't do much about it.
And I want to ask you why you think that is, because I think we have to look at that. Is it because of who is in the decision-making
absolutely.
roles?
Misogyny. It's right down to misogyny. And, representation makes such a massive difference. The fact that there are now more women in Parliament means that we discuss periods in Parliament. We discuss the menopause. We discuss endometriosis. We discuss PCOS. But it took a whole load of women being there for these discussions to even be on the table.
Does it bother you the number of people that stand in Parliament when you have those conversations? Because you could have a very, very very, very busy house for some conversations, and then otherwise it looks pretty empty.
It does look pretty empty at times in those, but I hope that the more people that speak, the more confidence we'll give people. And obviously, again, because it's an issue that affects women, we find that less men want to speak. But I really do champion that there are about 4-5 men that I know will always come to those debates and speak, and they're from all parties. And I've really I don't want to forget any of their names, so I'm not going to mention them. But if you've seen those particular debates now, you'll see there are 4 or 5 men that will particularly come and speak on those issues, and they're champions. And I think that it actually shows that that anybody can be a representative of people with these issues. It doesn't have to be women. But women have been the driving force of those discussions. We just need more men to back us up on these issues.
And when you have conversations with other male colleagues that potentially aren't yet attending those conversations in the House, what are those conversations like? Is it difficult to open that conversation, have that conversation? What's the response like?
Well, not for me. Perhaps I should find it more difficult to have some conversations.
No.
But I will always say what I'm thinking. And generally they're quite receptive. And again, I think there's a lot of nodding and smiling. And I think you'll find also that when it comes to signing up to particular things, they're always ready to. But things aren't changing on, as I said, the research and development side. And they're certainly not changing in our hospitals. And that's not good enough.
Yeah, research development is, as we've mentioned, an absolutely huge part of that. I do want to bring politics into it slightly, just because it is very relevant. So obviously, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, one of Labour's big manifesto pledges was about prioritising women's health and making it, and saying it's a very, very important element to them. And we have seen, and Women's Health have reported, that quite a few of those pledges have been, I think, halved in total. One of the big ones is the pledge for community hubs, or gynecological community hubs, which do fantastic work. And actually, loads of the women that I work with, interestingly enough, one of the most effective ways we've seen, because I'm based in Warwickshire and we're very lucky to have hubs there, is that actually getting ladies to speak to their GPs to say, this is the specific name of this gynecological community hub that the government have incentivised, and they are seeing that they are being seen for appointments and scans so much quicker. The difference between that and going into the main system has been absolutely phenomenal. So I just want to ask you, are you happy with what Labour are doing for women's health so far?
No,
is there more?
Well, if that's what's happening, no, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not happy because, like you just said, there were a lot of pledges made, and as far as I understood, we were sticking to them. But I will definitely go back and ask Wes about that, because he was very much on board. And I just hope that hasn't changed, because obviously what you're saying about the gynecological hubs makes it makes so much sense. And it's so much easier going through the whole hospital process, even just not having to go to A&E when you're in that much pain. There are other ways we could deal with this, which takes strain off the main services, which removes a lot of the layers of bureaucracy that will have you waiting a year for an ultrasound, then another 2 years for a laparoscopy, then another, all of that. I will be looking into that.
I would love that. That would be fantastic. We've had the most incredible conversation. It's been really fascinating. And thank you for sharing your story, because it's such a powerful one. And like you say, over 5 years, so many layers of challenges and things you had to overcome and go through. I think it's so important that people hear that. And to end our conversation, one question I'd really love to ask you is, if you were to speak to that younger Belle when you kind of 5 years when you started with that chronic pain, being sat in the office and having to take yourself to hospital, or even when you're a teenager with really painful periods, if there's any piece of advice or anything you would wish you could say to her, especially for the younger people and younger women listening today, what do you think you would say?
I would think the one thing that I've learned listening to other women and their stories, right from the issues that we face with menstruation, with things like endometriosis, PCOS, and even when it comes to childbirth, is that we have an incredible sense of our own bodies, and we should never let anybody tell us that something we think or we feel is wrong. We are almost always right about these things, and we need to keep pushing. If it does not feel right, it is not right. You have a right to that healthcare, and you should really, and whilst our NHS is meant to advocate for us, if at this point in time is not doing it enough, please advocate for yourself and make a point of making sure that whatever you're experiencing is dealt with.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Belle. You've been wonderful.
Thank you.
I loved our girl chat this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, then don't forget to hit the follow button wherever you're listening. To find out more about us or today's guest, then head to the show notes. Until next time, I'm Alexandra, and remember, it's not just a period.